Well, welcome to Take Our Word on this beautiful, beautiful Saturday in Sydney. We have the great Ross Cameron with us today, former Minister of the Crown, articulate, passionate, courageous. We also have with us Stephen Alexander, the great barrister, who will pull us all into line on technicalities, I'm sure, which will be mainly driven by Ross and the great Vinny here.
Hi everyone.
So I'm sure Stephen will keep us correct in our terminology and our structure and our thought process to the art of war that we've discussed. Now, Stephen, I'm going to ask you to bounce the ball today. What is your thought, the concept of our teaser that we ran on we're creeping our way to World War III?
I think if you take a step back and look at it, more likely than not, World War III has started. And let me just explain why. First of all, forget about who's wrong, who's right in the wars. But we have three wars going on at the moment. One, Russia and Ukraine. Two, Iran, America and Israel. And third, we got the Houthis with Saudi Arabia. Yeah? Now, let's just look at this. Firstly, you got the Ukraine war. You got about 57 countries indirectly financing Ukraine to fight Russia. Mostly it's the European countries, or all the European countries, NATO, United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand, South Korea, Japan. 50 countries indirectly financing a war. It's a lot of countries, yeah? Then you got the Persian War, you got Iran, and then you got Israel, America, and some of the NATO countries that are also supporting that war. Then you got the Houthis fighting Saudi Arabia. But what's critical about this, in West Asia, the Middle East, you got two thoroughfares that take a lot of the oil to the Western world and to Asia. And you got the Strait of Hormuz, and you got the Red Sea as well, and then further up, you got the Egyptian Suez Canal.
Yep.
So if all these things come to a halt, effectively, the Western world is going to suffer big time. So, in a war, you've got three things going. One, logistics. Two, you've got to have to avoid an escalation trap, because war escalates in stages. And third, you've got to have an off-ramp. Let's just go to Russia and Ukraine. Russia wants what they say is Nueva Russia, which is Donbass, Donetsk, Lugansk, Kupiansk, all those areas, right? Ukraine obviously saying, no, you can't have that, that's our land. So that's the war. But Ukraine is sponsored by Europe, the European Union, all those. You know, they've gambled the farm, the superannuation, and the kids' education in not necessarily defeating Russia, but to have a regime change. Get rid of President Putin, put someone else in that's more friendly to the West, and we can take the resources and bring back the money as an investment that we've spent on it. That's not going to happen. It seems that Russia is winning, and winning quite easily at the moment.
Can I just ask one quick question in there? How much validity does Russia have in their claims to holding land in the Ukraine? They stipulate that the Crimea, or part of the land of the Ukraine, is Russian.
Well, yes, it's a very good question. And if you go back into history, there are arguably genuine claims to the land that Russia is claiming for for example, Crimea was gifted to Ukraine, I think it was in 1952, by the then president of the Soviet Union, because actually he was Ukrainian as well. His name escapes me at the moment. So there's a lot of controversy as to who owned what and where. I think, for example, Kiev was purchased by the Soviet Union from Sweden. So you're going back hundreds and hundreds of years as to who's wrong and who's right and who owns what, But that argument is for the historians to run. But what you've got at the moment, Ukraine's saying, no, you can't take our land. So the question is this: Russia says, give us that land and we'll stop the war. So where's the off-ramp? There is no off-ramp because they're so far apart. Then you got the escalation trap. What's next? If they can't get rid of Russia from those lands, there's only one thing that's left: a tactical nuclear weapon. I'm not saying America's going to use it. I'm not saying Russia's going to use it. But that's the last step in the ladder in that part of the world. Then you go to Middle East, and we're talking now about Iran, the Persian War. When the war started, there was a number of objectives that America wanted to achieve. One was to recover the nuclear dust that Iran either has or has not. Two, to stop the hypersonic missiles that Iran has. Three, to stop them from sponsoring other tribes in the Middle East, namely the Houthis, Hezbollah, and Hamas. And four, to have a regime change. Now, as we sit here today, none of those four have been achieved. And to make things worse off, on the 27th of February until the beginning of time, the Straits of Hormuz were open. Now, the shut or not shut, depending on who you listen to, but not the same oil's coming out. So, when you balance that, again, logistics, escalation trap, and a ramp off, an off ramp.
Well, tell me this, if I may. What's the spark? What's the match that either ignites that Middle Eastern conflict or escalates it into leading to World War III? What's the spark? What sends it off?
In short, the Straits of Hormuz, and I'll tell you why. The reality is this: that there's two kinds of crude oil: sweet crude and sour crude. Sweet crude, there's plenty of it around, and the refineries in the West can deal with that. That's the oil that goes into your petrol cars and that. Then you got sour crude that deals with diesel and jet fuel, and there's a shortage of that. Not necessarily because it's not coming out. The refineries in the West are not geared for sour crude. They're only geared mostly for sweet crude. That's petrol for cars, right? A lot of it is coming out of the Middle East. But critically, what else is coming from the Middle East is sulfur, fertilizers, and a couple of other products which are critical. For example, fertilizers, right? Without that, there's going to be famines or serious problems. So there's got to be a break.
Yep.
Now, how can that be broken? One or two ways. First way is America takes control of the Strait of Hormuz. That's not happening at the moment, and I'll explain to you why. Where America is about 750 to 800 kilometers from the Straits of Hormuz. So let's not say Yamba, let's just say someone's on the Gold Coast and it's controlling what's coming in and out of the Sydney Harbour Bridge. That's just nonsense, right? Sure, they can stop one every now and then, but they haven't got control of it. That's the reality. So, how does America stop that? they can put troops on the ground, it's going to be a disaster, because geography determines that outcome. And what I mean by that is if geographically Iran's covered by mountains, they can't. It's just impossible. I think it's about 50 degrees Celsius now in Iran. You just can't. You need about 10 litres of water every day. Where's that going to come from? Again, logistics. So what's America got to do? Well, one choice. Oh, sorry, two. They either agree with Iran that they control it, they can have management fees, environmental fees, so the ships can come and go out of it, or what's the next alternative?
They claim it for themselves.
Yeah, but you can claim it, but if you're not
They're
there,
going to claim it for... Look, you know what I love about you, student? You are a professional barrister. You can talk underwater. I know why the juries love you, because you're so good looking and you just talk and talk and talk. You're incredible. I wish I had the money to hire you, because I know you're a very expensive lawyer. But anyway, this one. Let's talk about the reality of World War III.
yeah.
Okay? The reality is there will never be a World War III. And you want to ask me why?
Oh, well, firstly, I disagree, but you tell me why you think we're not in World War III
Because
now.
you underestimate the training of our military leaders. Our military leaders, since the missile issue back in the 60s with John F. Kennedy
the
and
Cuban
Khrushchev,
Missile Crisis,
the Cuban missile. Since that time, the military leaders, not only have they been trained in escalation, they've also been trained in de-escalation. And Ross, you're a minister of the Crown, you'd know all about this type of stuff, wouldn't you?
Well, I just say that whether we are sleepwalking into war, which I think is a bit interesting, evocative, and in my view, potentially very accurate, you're betting that our good training in escalation and de-escalation is going to save us.
Yes.
Reminds me a bit of Mike Tyson, who said, everyone has got a plan until I get punched in the face.
Correct. He did say that. But you know what else you're missing?
What am I missing?
Is this. These wars that we're talking about, if they go against America, it brings to an end the unipolar world, the exceptionalism of America. And then what you've got is a multipolar world. If America gives that up, how do they survive the $40 trillion debt that clicked over yesterday or the day before?
They just make more money.
They
That's what they're
can't.
good at.
They need the dollar to be the principal monetary stable of the world, and in order to do that, they gotta have hegemony. So if that gets taken away, and the Middle East or West Asia is controlled by Iran and Oman through the Straits of Hormuz, that means all those Middle Eastern countries, I'm talking about the Gulf states, they could deviate to the new Chinese system. I think it's called KIPS, which is similar to the SWIFT system, right? So all of a sudden there's a breakup, and that's the problem America has. If they lose their hegemony, they're in big strife, because what keeps them going is the petrodollar. Money comes out from the Middle East in US dollars, and then the Gulf states invested in America. So it just circles the money.
Let me jump in if I may again,
Yes.
because you seem to be articulate about what's happening in the Ukraine. What did the Bidens have to do in there? The Biden son was in Ukraine buying something, dealing, I don't know what the hell he was doing.
Yeah, Burisma. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, there's a bit of controversy about that. There's a couple of things going on there. Burisma, which was a gas company, I think, was dealing in gas. Now, Biden Hunter, as I understand it, is a lawyer, and there was controversy whether he had expertise to be on the board of directors, etc. That's the first thing.
Was the president aware of all this?
I have no idea. I mean,
What was your assumption? Was the president, did he have knowledge that,
well, the documentation that has been released thus far suggests that he didn't. But that's as far as it goes. But more controversially, there was another issue with the Ukraine and the Bidens, with Hunter Biden, and he might have been involved in industries dealing with biochemicals and all that sort of thing. Again, it's never been proven one way or another. It's allegations, but yeah, that's where it's
let
at.
me ask the Minister of the Crown.
He should know better.
Yeah. What do you think, Ross?
Well, the most famous encapsulation answer to your question is 10% for the big guy. That's the answer.
It's
always the answer.
rumor.
10% for the big guy. And look, there's no question that, Ukraine is the most corrupt war in modern history, in my opinion. Ukraine is easily the most corrupt state in Eastern Europe. Australia has given $1.8 billion, $1,800 million to a Slavic border dispute in Eastern Europe, 15,000 kilometres away, in which the dominant power spending the money that's coming out of a bricklayer in Engadine, and an electrician from Narrabeen is funding Nazis in the Azov Brigade in Ukraine who have the swastika tattooed on their arm and their shoulder and proudly saying we're Nazis. And the Australian government is introducing anti-hate speech legislation and funding 400 officers in ASIO to resist extremism while we're giving nearly $2 billion to actual Nazis in Ukraine. That's the logic of Australian government foreign policy, and it's one of the reasons why we are sleepwalking into war. Because if you say, well, what on earth has Australia got to do with a border dispute among Russian Orthodox and Christian Slavs in Eastern Europe? The answer is nothing. And yet we have, the peak of stupidity in the Federal Senate, the lowest grade stain on the Australian character, the bloke you would cross to the other side of the road to avoid accidentally bumping into, Senator James Paterson, who proudly puts out a press release saying that Australia's contribution is to train Ukrainian special forces in how to more efficiently kill Russians. That's what Australia's doing. That's Australia's contribution to avoiding World War III. You've got a bloke like Senator James Paterson, a Liberal, my former party, who is nothing more than a ventriloquist dummy for the war machine. Okay, the bloke has never had an original thought in his entire life, but he's got Raytheon, Thales Underwater Systems, Bushmasters with their hand up his ass, manipulating his mouth up and down, right? And he is what passes for an Australian senator. That's why we are sleepwalking into World War III.
Oh, you guys, man. What about talking about closer to home, right? We had our friendly Chinese people come down with their big frigates and submarines, circumnavigate Australia, firing off their missiles and guns. Obviously a warning. Am I right, Stephen? It's a warning, wasn't it? A warning? Why would you circumnavigate the whole of Australia, firing off these missiles and guns? Is that to try and intimidate us?
Who's Australia's biggest trading partner?
China. And who's our biggest ally? America. So, why would you try and intimidate us? And has it worked? I mean, I don't believe for one second that there's a doomsday coming up as a result of this.
Yep.
And I'll tell you why. Because I always believe that in the end, good people, strong people will come to our defence. They will be there. They will be able to de-escalate the situation. We came close to war after the Second World War. We came close to war again with the Cuban Missile Crisis,
Yep.
and that ended peacefully. Came to a point where we all thought they're going to blow each other up.
Correct, but it came to an end because President Kennedy and President Bushner dealt with avoiding the escalation trap and found an off-ramp.
And that's what I'm saying. There's
But-
always going to be an off-ramp.
But the question is, what is the off-ramp now? American capitulation in both Russia and Iran? Or it just keeps on going? Because for those two countries, it doesn't matter if you agree or disagree, it's an existential threat.
What's the common denominator between America and Russia at the moment? It's two leaders, Putin and Trump. But they're not going to be there forever, are they?
Yes, they're not.
If they change, what else changes?
Putin might be there forever.
Huh?
Putin might be there forever.
He's got elections in October.
I doubt
think.
You know, another point I make is that Putin is holding elections in the middle of a war.
Yeah.
Indeed, Israel is about to hold an election. The country which is not holding any elections is Ukraine, because Ukraine is a junta, a military dictatorship, a centre of corruption. But where I would like to take on my mate, Vinny, is the Chinese Navy sent 3 ships.
And a submarine.
3 ships and a submarine, okay, which is less than 1% of their entire naval capability,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
Number 2, Australian territory goes out, I think, 200 kilometres.
Yeah.
Beyond that,
Yeah.
the Pacific Ocean is not owned by us.
No.
And there's no suggestion that the Chinese were threatening us in some way in our territorial waters. Number 3, I'd say this. One of the things the Chinese were doing with their submarine was actually exploring the subsurface. Because Australia is run by a group of extremist, militant left Greens who hate exploration, we don't even explore in our own mainland, let alone in the ocean. Whereas the Chinese are curious people. They want to know what's under the ocean. They want to know what's down there.
Of course they do.
They want to map the ocean floor.
Yeah.
I say, thank goodness, there's still someone out there who's interested and curious, because there certainly isn't in Canberra or in Macquarie Street.
Macquarie Street.
Yeah.
That's devoid of
Mate,
anything.
We're the ones who say, here we go. We've got Narendra Modi comes out here, the president of India, and he says to Albo, mate, besides the couple of million people I want to export to Australia, I also want you to export to me your uranium. Because we want to build a whole bunch of nuclear reactors.
Of course.
And so we want Australian uranium, right? So dumb Albo, stupid Penny Wong, stupid Chris Minns, they say, oh, yeah, we'll sell you our uranium. We won't let Australians use uranium. We won't let Australia, but we'll sell it to you
Because
Indians.
we want you to be a sovereign state. We don't need to be a sovereign state.
But we're not allowed to use it. But
I
then
get it.
Chris Minns is so dumb. He even says, the New South Wales division of the Australian Labor Party says, we may sell uranium to India, they may use Australian uranium in their power plants, but we may not explore for uranium in New South Wales.
Listen,
That is how dumb
I
the
feel-
Australian Labor Party is.
I feel a bit sorry for Chris Minns because I think he's a good bloke. I think he's a great guy. I think he's dominated
I
by
think he's doing
party
a good
politics.
job, actually.
Yeah.
I think he's
I think the
he's trying
party
his best.
politics is what gets him. Otherwise, he'd be a very, very good. He is a very good leader.
Well,
Yeah.
he's the only one that backed Albo recently.
well, that's right. Yeah,
Out of the Labor states,
yeah.
Chris,
Yeah.
On which
that-
subject, Tony? Which subject? Which decision did he back out?
Well, for example, the Royal Commission.
melons,
Yeah.
was it, or was it on
No.
tobacco excise?
No,
or
that was
was
on
it on
the weapon buyback.
the gun buyback?
The gun buyback.
Okay. Another dumb idea. But
It is
go
a dumb
ahead, Tony.
idea,
Are
but-
you in favour?
No,
of
no, no.
No. We want, they're trying to create a situation where every year at budget time, the police minister comes and says, we police need more and more and more guns. We need semi-automatic weapons, we need automatic weapons, we need Glock pistols, we need tasers, we need some sort of bloody gas we can... But you people out there, you are not allowed to have any guns. Only we are allowed to have the guns. I'm sorry, Albo.
Come on, Vinny, fight for your guys.
Can I say, real cops don't really need special guns. We don't need them.
Agreed.
All right.
Yeah.
Good cops don't need them.
No. Well, the so-called the Peelers, named after, was it Sir Robert Peel, who established the British police force without guns. And they were famous around the world.
They were.
And they were deeply respected
Because of their batons.
because
They had hard, long batons.
yeah, but they didn't carry guns because the level of respect from the citizen to the police force was the greatest weapon that the police had. But as respect for police declines, the need for brutal, powerful weapons increases
But
proportionally.
do you realise that respect came down when the politicians took over the police force?
I agree with your argument about this, Vinny.
I hate the idea that a politician is in charge of law and order
Yeah.
to the extent that police officers are hampered by politicians.
Yeah.
That is so wrong. And the reason and the fact that we can't investigate corruption in Parliament, they've got an ICAC doing that instead of an independent police force,
Yeah.
that is so wrong.
Well, Vinny, thank you. Hold up for a minute there,
And
Ross.
we were talking about bloody
We're going
war.
to come back in a moment. We're just going to have a little cup of coffee. I've got to feed Vinny. He's losing some of his power, so he'll get some food. Stephen's in shape. Ross is on fire. I want to hear, neither of these learned gentlemen have mentioned North Korea. Where do they fit into this? With whose team are they with? We'll be right back.